Hello and welcome to Season 8 of the Mount Silver Draft League. My name is Scribbles, I am coach of the Colorado Cobalions, and this year we are up in the Tyranitar division of Mount Silver, which is the top division, so looking forward to the challenge. Should be very interesting. This is going to be a quick recap of the draft for this season. Really briefly, I want to go over the rules for the league before diving into the draft. First thing is that we're drafting 10 to 11 Pokemon with a point total of 105. It's a points-based draft, but there are a few kind of idiosyncrasies to it that we'll get to later. Beyond that, we are banning Z-moves, and Dynamax and Gigantamax, they're both removed. Mega Pokemon are also removed from this particular season. We are not allowing any of the deleted moves from Sword and Shield. That includes Pursuit, Hidden Power, Return, Frustration. But we are allowing the Crown Tundra movesets, anything that we know about. So that'll include move tutors from the Isle of Armor, things like Close Combat Tapu Koko, basically anything that's been leaked as being available on a Pokemon is going to be allowed in the league. This also includes Pokemon with hidden abilities that are scheduled to be released but hadn't been released as of yet. So that's an interesting kind of wrinkle and something to keep track of as you're going through the draft. The kind of interesting thing about the league here is that it is a points-based draft, but we are looking at a few tier restrictions. So at the top of the curve here, 18 and 17 points, each team's allowed one member from that group. From 16 to 14, you're allowed 2. From 13 to 11, you're allowed 3 of these. And then in any of the lower tiers, you're allowed an unlimited amount up to your roster cap, which is 11, but you're only allowed one 1-point Pokemon. So going into the draft, this poses kind of some interesting strategy elements. So given that you're only allowed one Pokemon from this top tier, there is kind of there's more supply here than there is availability to draft these Pokemon. So you can see that getting one of these Pokemon is obviously going to be valuable for the team because they're up at the top tier because they're very, very strong. But you're guaranteed to get one of these Pokemon no matter what you do with the rest of the draft. Beyond that, if you look at the 105 point total and start adding up, an 18 point, 2 16 points, 3 13 points, you're going to run out of points very, very quickly. And with the restriction on the 1-point Mons as well, it's going to be very difficult to build a team. I ended up with the 16th pick in the draft, so last pick, which is the wheel, meaning I'd get two picks in a row, but those picks would come at the end of the first round. So going into the draft, my basic strategy was if any of the really broken Pokemon from the top tier fell to me, I would take them and be happy. But if none of them did, I was basically going to just punt on this pick all the way until the end of the draft. I thought this was kind of my best strategy of getting the best team I could at the wheel that late in the draft. I really didn't want a late pick in this particular instance because this is, if you look at some of the Pokemon that are available, things like Darkrai, Deoxys Speed, Greninja, which includes Protean, Ash Greninja, Kyurem Black, Lando Eye, Naganadel, Aegislash, Pheromosa. There's a bunch of Pokemon here that are borderline Uber level power, and we're still dealing with basically just a standard draft format otherwise. So there's a certain number of Pokemon that are worth picking early and kind of locking yourself in. But once those are gone, I think waiting, it doesn't make much of a difference as long as you get one of the strong Pokemon from this tier. So the list of Pokemon going into the draft, kind of looking over the list here, the first thing I wanted to think about was what Pokemon from this group were broken enough that I thought were worth picking early. At the end of the day, the list for me came down to Darkrai, Dragapult, Greninja, Kyurem Black, Naganadel, Tapu Koko, Ash Greninja, Pheromosa, and that's it. If any of those Pokemon fell to me, I was going to take them and be happy. If none of them did, I was going to sit on that pick for the rest of the draft. Now going through the rest of the list, trying to look for value, there's a lot of good Pokemon. Cinderace at 16 points I think is an amazing value. I think Cinderace belongs in this top tier, so that would be a very, very solid first pick. Other Pokemon that caught my eye, Necrozma at 15 is decent value. At 14, there's a lot of good Pokemon there. It's really solid. If you get 2 14s instead of 16, I think this tier is pretty well built throughout. Going down to the next tier, some of the Pokemon that I thought had good value. Crocodile, with the addition of Lash Out, I think having a rocker with the ability to use Lash Out to kind of punish defog users, specifically stab Lash Out, I thought was really cool. I wanted to play around with that. Mandibuzz is really solid at 12 points as well. I like Tangrowth at 12. Other Pokemon at 11, I like Crobat a lot. I think Incineroar is really strong. Obstagoon is a strong Pokemon. Registeel is a good Pokemon at this tier. So is Rotom Heat. Going below that into kind of where it really starts to become really important to find value, because this is really what your team's going to end up being built out of when you go through and take out your kind of max level Pokemon. These are going to be what makes your team good, or difficult to prep against at the very least. I liked Seismitoad at 9. At 8, I like Galarian Weezing actually at 8. I drafted him last season at 14, and I thought it was decent. I don't think it's worth 14, but I think it's probably worth more than 8. Looking for value in the rest of the tier, I like Piloswine. I had him last year. I thought it was good, solid for 6. A lot of these Pokemon are fairly interchangeable depending on your team composition, so it's hard to identify Pokemon that are specifically good. I like Cinccino picking up Triple Axle as a good move in its move pool to kind of give it a little bit better coverage overall. Liepard with Prankster and a bunch of cool moves to kind of go along with that seemed pretty powerful to me. I always like Quagsire. It fulfills a really nice role on a team in just preventing setup from the opponent, or heavily discouraging it at the very least. Luxray I thought has a really good move pool. It picked up Play Rough, Psychic Fangs, a few other things along those lines. It has great abilities. Basculin I think is a really good Pokemon. Adaptability or Reckless, getting it Flip Turn makes it a really good kind of wall breaker at a decent speed tier, so I like Basculin a lot. At 2 points, some of the Pokemon that I was looking at, Wigglytuff's okay. Torracat's interesting. I think Torracat is usable. So there's obviously anyone looking through this can find their own value picks going through. The other thing I really want to identify was a 1-point Mon, because you are allowed one of them, so you kind of want to get a good one. The only ones that I saw looking through this quickly that I thought were worth drafting were Dottler, who can give you screens and webs and is pretty bulky with Eviolite. Gothorita is actually, you're allowed to use Shadow Tag on Gothorita, and Gothorita has really good defense. It can trap things very successfully. And then I think Raboot is the only other one at 1 point that was worth drafting from my perspective. It's fast, it can pivot, it has decent attack stats, it has access to Libero, so it's a good Pokemon. So, like I said, basically my overall strategy here was, if I can get a broken or an Uber level Mon with my first pick, I'm going to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and wait on my top tier pick until super late in the draft and just kind of fill out a solid team otherwise. So that being said, when the picks finally got around to me, I unfortunately did not have any of the Ubers available to me, and so I ended up taking what I thought was one of the most solid Pokemon from the second tier, the 16, 15, 14 tier, and that is Hydreigon. So Hydreigon is a very solid Pokemon, great base stats, can run physical or special, has pivot, has defog, Dark Dragon's really good typing, picked up Dragon Dance, it has Nasty Plot now, it can set up on both sides, it's bulky, it's a great Scarfer, has an amazing move pool. I think this Mon does a lot of really, really good things for a team, and picking it first was really nice because it allowed me to go into a lot of different directions. I had back-to-back picks, and again, since I'm avoiding kind of taking that second early Mon, I decided to take my second Pokemon from that next tier, which ended up being Victini. And Victini is really similar to Hydreigon. It can set up on physical and special. Victini also has, same base stat total, really good stats. My speed tiers are a little awkward to start with 198, but Victini does a lot of the same things that Hydreigon can do, which means it allows them both to kind of have flexibility, and it gives you... Flexibility is only good if you can back it up with flexibility, or you can back it up with Pokemon that can do the roles that you want that Pokemon to do, so that it doesn't get pigeonholed into the same function every matchup. So Victini and Hydreigon both being able to do a lot of different things is actually really good because it allows them to do those different things. Another thing with Victini and Hydreigon, they have really good type synergy. The things that Hydreigon are weak to, things like Bug, Fairy, Ice, Victini has resistances to, and the things that Victini is weak to, Ground, Water, Rock, I suppose, Hydreigon isn't weak to. So the two of them have really good type synergy. Both of them can pivot around. This really helps me begin to kind of form not necessarily a defensive core, because neither one of these are generally built to be walls or bulky pivots or anything like that, but having good type synergy early is really helpful in kind of filling out the rest of the draft. So after Victini, my next pick is Conkeldurr. And so Conkeldurr was in the lower tier. By the time it got back to me, there were a few Pokemon missing from the second tier, but most people had started to take their tier 2. So the strategy of skipping my early pick and then focusing on the later picks for the entire draft really let me be kind of one pick ahead, and then being on the wheel, basically both my picks were kind of at the beginning of a run for each group of Mons. So I got my first tier 3 Mon in Conkeldurr. I love Conkeldurr, especially with pivoting, which I have from in Hydreigon and Victini. Conkeldurr can also threaten a lot of bulky Steels types or bulky normal types that can be somewhat annoying to deal with. Conkeldurr does get scared out by Psychic types generally and Ghost types generally. Hydreigon deals with them very well, so Conkeldurr and Hydreigon kind of as an offensive core work really well together. I also like the priority on Conkeldurr, and getting a Pokemon with like a lower speed tier helps with when I already have two Pokemon right around that 198 section. Conkeldurr is an amazing wall breaker. I think with pivoting and Conkeldurr, you got the beginning of a really good core. Great attack stats. Its defense stats are actually really good with the HP. It wears Assault Vest really well. It has great coverage. Another Defogger, should that ever come up in a match, which I think is really unlikely. I don't think you'd want to be running Defog on Conkeldurr if you can help it. But overall, just a really, really solid Pokemon, and a Pokemon that I've really liked using in the past, and I have a little bit of experience with, which I think is important in Draft League. Followed that pickup with Crobat. So looking at my first three picks, I do have two Defoggers, but I have Victini as well, and having Victini makes me really, really want to focus on hazard control. Conkeldurr discourages things like Toxic Spikes pretty well, so picking up a non-grounded poison type for hazard control didn't seem as bad to me. The reason Conkeldurr discourages things like Toxic Spike is it has Guts, and you don't want to give an opponent Guts for free if they could also carry another item. Crobat I've used before as well. It has a great speed tier, which I wanted to lock down early because it's difficult to find Pokemon at that speed tier later in the draft. It has usable attack and special attack. It has setup on the special side. If Nasty Plot, it picked up Hurricane, so it is a bit threatening there. And I think it's an excellent defogger. You can build it very bulky and run something like Black Sludge, and it's not taking 25 from rocks. It's effectively taking 12.5 from rocks because of the healing. It can defog and get out. It has pivoting again, so 3 Mons with U-turn on my team currently. It deals with fairy types to some degree as well with its poison stab and resistances. Double psychic weeks during this wheel pick was a bit concerning, but my first two Pokemon are immune and resist psychic, so it didn't seem that concerning to me overall. And I just really like Crobat. I think it's a really strong Pokemon, and I'm excited to use it again. So at this point in the draft, I have Hydreigon, Victini, Conkeldurr, Crobat. I've used a lot of money. I am hazard free right now, which is not great. My team's somewhat weak to hazards, so I don't mind not dictating the hazards necessarily, but I don't want to have no hazard setters on my team. I think that's a really bad strategy, even if you, generally speaking, want hazards off the field. So my next pick, I went with Seismitoad from the lower tier as a really, really good rocker. It gives me a water type, it gives me a water immunity, which I think is really important if you ever run into a rain team or just a super strong water type attacker. It has good bulk. It fills out my speed tiers pretty well, sitting right between Conkeldurr and Hydreigon Victini. It can run physical or special to some degree. It can actually be a very good offensive Pokemon. If you run a Swift Swim set with like Rain Dance and just some water attacks, it can do some work. I think it's a pretty niche set, and I wouldn't bring it very often, but it does have that potential. It is a great check to. It's a bulky water. Bulky waters are really important to have on teams. They give you answers to a lot of offensive Pokemon, and just having Scald available on a bulky Pokemon is really annoying to deal with for my opponents. Seismitoad is my first Pokemon that doesn't have any means of pivot, but I really needed and really wanted to get hazards on the team and have a solid Pokemon that could run hazards. So after Seismitoad, from there I went and picked up Rotom Mow. So this was kind of a type synergy pick. I was missing a grass type, I was missing an electric type. Rotom Mow gives me pivoting, it also gives me a 4th Defogger. Again, I don't think you want to run Defog on Hydreigon or Conkeldurr. You certainly can, but again, having more Pokemon that can fulfill roles for other members of your team is really helpful because it allows them to function in a much stronger way if they're not forced into the same role all times. Electric Grass Stab is actually really strong. It's very difficult to switch in, very difficult to deal with a single Pokemon, generally speaking. The access to Nasty Plot is really helpful for Rotom. It's also a really good Scarfer based on its speed tier. It tends to just barely outspeed a lot of Pokemon with a Scarf. Things like Trick and Will-O-Wisp are also really nice to have. I think it's a really solid Pokemon. I would have preferred getting Rotom Wash, I believe, over Seismitoad, and then after that picking up some other grass type like Serena, but I'm really happy with Seismitoad and Rotom Mow. I like the synergy between those two with the rest of the team. After this point, I had started to get a really strong sense of what I was targeting for my top tier Pokemon. I was really looking at Clefable. I love the synergy between Clefable, Hydreigon, and Victini, alongside Conkeldurr as kind of an offensive core. And I felt that was going to be really, really strong, which meant I had another rocker, which gave me 2. So I had Seismitoad and Clefable, is what I'm thinking at this point in the draft. Unfortunately, I didn't want to just have 2 rockers. I really wanted a 3rd rocker so that if I wanted to bring a offensive Clefable in a matchup where Seismitoad was really bad, I could bring a rocker. I wouldn't be forced to put rocks on Seismitoad and bring it. So a 3rd rocker was definitely something I wanted, and I also wanted a ghost type. And there's a few options for a ghost type rocker. You have Runerigus, who is a ground ghost. It also picks up Toxic Spikes, which is decent, but I really didn't like Runnerigus's kind of stat distribution for my team. My team is angling towards physical in terms of its attacking stats and its defense. It's more defensive than special defensive. So I ended up going with Cursula, who does have rocks, has an abysmal speed, but it does threaten with a really decent special attack. I do pick up a minor synergy with Victini running Trick Room and having Cursula available to potentially abuse that. Cursula, it's not threatening, it's not a very good mon, it's 5 points for a reason. But having an offensive ghost type is really good to give me another resistance to fighting, an immunity to fighting in fact, and the offensive synergy between Hydreigon and a ghost type is really, really good. And then on top of that, I have a stealth rocker that I can throw in as a suicide lead or as something along those lines that can just get me rocks and be done with it. So not too much that I'm expecting from Cursula, but I think it does fill a few roles that the team needed. Next pick is Chinsino. It kind of filled the speed tier, was part of the reason this drops in between Hydreigon, Victini, and Crobat at 115. It's a fairly threatening attacker with Skill Link and a bunch of multi-hit moves. Like I said in the beginning, it picked up Triple Axle, which gives it ice coverage, which is kind of nice. It doesn't make it a transcendent mon by any means, but it's nice, it's usable. It gives me a normal type, which I didn't have on the team. I think normal types are are good to have on teams. My last season ended to a Komala with Last Resort, so these things happen. They're definitely nice to have on a team. At this point, I know I'm locked into Clefable. I'm confirmed with basically everyone else in the league that Clefable is not going to be drafted, so I just need to fill out my tier 3 and my 1-pointer. I don't have enough money for a tier 3 actually, so I'm not going to take a tier 3. Looking at my team, I have no flying resist, so I am going to grab a Fremon Luxray as a flying resist. It's not a great Pokemon. Its speed really holds it back. All of its other stats are pretty good. Its bulk is passable. With Intimidate, it has pretty good physical bulk, all things considered. It has a really nice attack, has a good move pool. Being able to run Guts gives it an option to be a pretty threatening physical attacker. It doesn't have priority like Conkeldurr to really take advantage of that. But as far as a flying resist goes, I think it fits the build perfectly. It has some niche application in other matchups, so I'm happy to take it at 3 points. And unfortunately for me, the 1-point mon that I really wanted to take in Gothorita got snapped up by PZZ before it came back to me, so I ended up settling for Dottler. Dottler's fine. Super bulky, can give me screens, which maybe allows Hydreigon, Victini, Crobat even to potentially set up. It can run Trick Room. It can run Webs. Webs could potentially be interesting. I don't really have a great team for abusing Webs, but Hydreigon and Victini can make use of Webs if an opponent's speed tiers aren't great. So Dottler's usable. I'm not disappointed in Dottler. I wish it was Gothorita. I think Gothorita for 1 point was a deal, and I think I would have brought that. I would have brought that multiple weeks this season. So I ended the draft with Clefable. I think Clefable is a really amazing Pokemon. Being able to provide wish support, especially with teleport, alongside setup variants that are really difficult to deal with. Prepping for Clefable is mind-numbing sometimes. A lot of my team is lacking recovery. Hydreigon has Roost, but Victini, Conkeldurr, Seismitoad, Rotom-Mow, they don't have great recovery. Rotom-Mow has Paint Split, but that's not very reliable. So being able to Wish Pass is super good for this team. A Fairy type, in terms of type synergies, really goes well with a lot of my Pokemon. So I think filling out a Fairy type was really nice here. Clefable can also run like Life Orb Magic Guard sets that are super strong. It gives me an Unaware Mon to help deal with opposing setup. I think Clefable is a very versatile Pokemon. It makes building really easy because, again, Clefable can fit into multiple roles, so I can allow a Pokemon to take on a role where it excels, essentially. And Clefable is kind of what I was targeting when it got to me, once all the other Pokemon were gone. Zeraora would have been fun. I love using Zeraora, but Zeraora was taken, so basically when I saw that the top tier Pokemon that were gone when it got to me, I knew I was taking Clefable, and that kind of pushed me towards this Hydreigon Victini team up. So this ends up being the team overall. I'm pretty happy with it. I think there are some holes. I would have liked to grab a Steel type at some point, though I'm not super worried about the Steel type in terms of like a defensive synergy, which is what you usually want your Steel type to do. I think I've got good defensive synergy with the team otherwise, and so the Steel type kind of plugging a hole there didn't feel super necessary. I would like a little bit better balance between my physical and special, but I think it somewhat rounded out towards the end of the draft. I'm still somewhat physically biased, but I have Pokemon that can really abuse the special side as well. As far as how I expect the team to perform, I think it should be good. It'll be fun to build with. I think it might miss out on kind of the top end power. When you think about other teams having access to Pokemon like Pheromosa or Naganadel or Darkrai or things like that, where they've just got that little bit more power that can be difficult to overcome, I think I can get kind of bullied a little bit. I think I have well-rounded synergy, but not necessarily top end. So if there's a bad matchup, it can be easy for this team to be overpowered, I suppose. Other than that, I think it should be a really interesting season. I'm using a lot of Pokemon that I've really liked using in the past. Conkeldurr and Crobat especially, I've loved using them in the past. Miss out on a few Pokemon that I also enjoy using in Crocodile, so whoever got Crocodile, enjoy them this season. I think it'll be one of his best ones. Predictions for this season, I don't know, it's hard to say. I made the playoffs last year kind of in an open Mount Silver League, and this year it's Tyranitar, kind of just the top division. I'm hoping to squeeze into the playoffs is my goal, basically. So something around 5-5, 6-4, and make the playoffs would be, I think, a great result. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Good luck to all the other competitors in the league, and I'll see you for week 1.